on the loose.
Посмотрим.
Форсаж 9.
Hi, hello there, sir. My name is Dima. I represent about 5 million film fans from Russia. Nice to meet you, sir. And before we dive in, I would like to thank you for this wonderful movie. It was totally worth the wait and all delays. And I'm 100% sure it will help cinemas and fans, to remember how great it is to watch such large-scale premieres.
Wow, thank you.
So, the first question is really simple. Is this chapter different from the previous ones? And can you please tell us about the new challenges?
Yeah, I feel like every time, if we're lucky enough to be able to earn another chapter, it's my job and our job to always try to kind of push the boundary, but also at the same time, we made a commitment from when I first joined the franchise that, we're always going to kind of embrace evolution and growth. I think that with other films, the character kind of stays the same, but here we have our characters, they start off as these single characters, they get together, they have kids, and now we're doing this big action movie, and they have a 3-year-old, so I think that's something that we take a lot of pride in. And, I feel like if we can't feel like we're growing and pushing, then we shouldn't be making the movie.
Yeah, about characters, because by now the family is enormous. How did you go about balancing those beats to make sure everyone has a moment to shine,
One of the things that I love about making these movies, actually the fans don't see, because, I feel like when there's a connection with me and the character and the actors, we actually sit and talk for hours about things that you never see on screen, and that's something that I kind of just enjoy personally. But I do think that ultimately that gives you that feel when you see it. And this one, that was the biggest challenge for me, because not only are we bringing a lot of characters back, but we're also introducing new characters. And, the thing that helped me was that usually when we make these movies, I know kind of where we're going as a universe, but I always feel like I'm going to only think one film. But Vin and I have been talking for about 10 years about how do we wrap up the saga. And so this is the first time I allowed myself to think, okay, Fast 9 really is the first film of the last chapter. So, I think it was fun to be able to kind of have this massive scale of characters come back and make sure that we do justice so that we can set them up for future installments. So that to me was the biggest challenge by far.
Yeah, but some characters went missing. Hobbs, Shaw, for example, for obvious reasons. And just to clarify, is it fair to say what everyone can come back at some point?
It's interesting. We have a lot of these conversations, and for me, I get the kind of cerebral or even superficial need, the business side. It always scares me, because every time if I think that, it becomes a failure spectacularly. So I've always tried to just really kind of honor our characters and where we're going to go. And obviously, the advantage that we have is that we're not based on a comic book or other IP. So we can do anything we want, which is the greatest thing. But we need to be careful not to be reactive, so that hopefully whatever decision we make, it's not a business decision, it's not a calculate, it's just something that hopefully is very organic and natural.
Yeah, let's move to graphics. You once said what CGI never replaces the real thing many years ago. And do you still think so?
I do. I think that, as we've grown as a franchise, it's a little bit of have your cake and eat it too, And what I learned early on is that there's no right way to apply, VFX. And I think that as a filmmaker, especially a film of this size, you're sitting there with the buffet of anything you have, right? And I think certain filmmakers approach it differently, and that's not better or worse. But for me, it's important to always, even if it's the craziest idea, to let's do it practically, and then we can use all the other tools to help support it. I can use an example of pulling this car through a building, and to be able to kind of observe that, prep that, and see how, things react to, interaction with other objects, that to me gives me a lot of data in how we approach it. So I've kind of developed my own way of approaching and using things, but I also think that at the end of the day, nothing beats, having this idea and just throwing a car. There's something very visceral about that mathematically VFX just can't capture.
Yeah, it's very nice to hear. But is there anything what you or someone else have talked about that is just too big? It's too expensive for us to do, too hard to do, or it's just about imagination?
It's funny because when this question you asked, like it's evolved, right? Like I remember when we did Fast Five, and I wanted to do this chase, the favela chase, and back then, the studio's like, you can do whatever you want, but you only have this much money, So I talked to my AD and I said, hey, how much time do we have? And he said, a day and a half. And I said, well, it's a 6-day chase, And I said, screw it. It's what's best for the movie. Let's figure it out. And we shot that in a day and a half. So that kind of created its own energy in how we can tell that story. Now, if the same thing happens, the studio would say, okay, give you 6 days. So in a way, we've earned our right to, but I also want to take that and not lose the energy of what the spirit of Fast and Furious, And so, to kind of answer your question, I feel like it's an ongoing process, and I kind of appreciate things that we've earned, but at the same time, I don't want to ever be complacent.
Yeah. It seems like Vin Diesel has a lot of vision for where he wants to take the franchise. Can you talk about working alongside him, not just as an actor?
Yeah, I can say that, when we first met, and this is 2005, I think now looking back, the connection we have is that, I don't think neither of us were supposed to be here, right? Like when I started off, people were trying to label, like, you can do this, you can do that. And we both kind of went through the independent films to get into Sundance, and it started giving us an opportunity. So, I've always enjoyed our conversation, and it's weird, there'll be times where we're working on F9, and there'll be a moment and something happens, and I look at Vin and I said, remember in 2011, we were talking about this, and somehow it found its way to here. And I think that's something that's very rare. I think in Hollywood sometimes it could be a very lonely place, and to be able to find someone of like mind, the contributions, it's not so literal a lot of times. We could be sitting there, just talking 6 years ago, 10 years ago, and I might not even process it or understand it, but it was just us connecting, and somehow it just kind of, it will grow and evolve, and it will come out in the right time. And I think it's our job to try to catch that. I always say making a fast movie a little bit, it's kind of like surfing. It's like you just want to get out in the water, and if the right wave comes, you want to take it. And so I enjoy that process with him. I think that for anybody that's like looking, they might be confused. But, like I've always said, if it's a bad experience, I wouldn't come back, so definitely coming back, it's something that I really am proud of. And I'm really, I feel very lucky to have him as a partner, and I think the one thing that I think we do very well is we're there to support each other, but also respect each other's job, and so that, a lot of times it's not as like calculating of plotting, but it's really talking about like where we want to go. So sitting here talking to you, it's like, again, it's a lot of kind of the feel and the tone and what we're trying to do in this last chapter. It was not something that we talked about last year. It was something that we've been talking about for 10 years, and slowly, it's feeling very natural. And for me, that's always a good sign.
Yeah, thanks. And let's talk about fun. Can you please tell us the funniest story happened to you while traveling the world during filming of this particular movie?
Wow. I feel like this is one of the things that I enjoy most. You know, I'm very lucky because usually when I say, okay, we're gonna go shoot a movie, we basically just buy tickets and we go, and I just fly around the world, and I'm just visiting and trying to find, you know, hopefully the right match. And it's not just it's just not a location. I think it's a feel, you know. And on this one, you know, I don't know, funny.
Just hard work and nothing else.
Oh no, I'll tell you, the food. The food to me is always, you know, like you know, Clayton, who works with us, you know, he knows me enough, like where sometimes our location is plotted by food, you know. So there's been territories and countries that we visited that I know that it was on there because we were there to try. We wanted to try certain food, and maybe it sounds crazy, but sometimes that's a great way in to be able to kind of, you know, I don't like to stop in a country and go to like the whatever 5-star restaurant. Those are fine, but like we're always trying to find hole in the walls, you know, and in a way that kind of like, in a weird way, it kind of works because I always feel like, you know, if we look at any location, there could be a landmark, but our film is always about 10, 15 degrees this way, you know? And I think the more we engage, and that for me, you know, through food, it always kind of helps us find like you know, I remember in Fast Five, it was trying to find this steak sandwich that then we found this one corner that was perfect for what we were looking for. So, you know, it's kind of part of our recipe in how we design a movie sometimes.
Yes, food is everything. And, can you tell us who is the most self-disciplined person of the cast?
Wow. I mean, I feel like Ludacris is probably, you know, I mean, everybody has such great strength, and I love, you know, engaging this whole cast. And I could say that nobody works the same way, you know. But I think Chris, I remember at one point he decided he is just going to change his life physically, mentally. And this is 2012, and being back on this movie and seeing him, he has not like let go. And that discipline, I'm always in awe of, you know. But I feel like everybody kind of has their own strength and their own, you know, whatever the idea of discipline is. It's my job to hopefully connect with them so that, you know, when we're rolling camera, they're always at their best.
And who will get to space first, Tom Cruise or the Fast and Furious franchise?
You know, I don't know if it's a competition. I do know that like we are always trying to, you know, do what's best for us. And I think that, again, going back to meeting Vin, I think that, you know, we're always trying to defy labels, you know. Just when you think you know who we are, I think, you know, we're going to try to always grow and you know, and not be defined. So, you know, if that takes us to places that you wouldn't expect, that's definitely part of our design.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think that's it. Thanks for your time. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
day. And thank you for this wonderful movie once again. Have a
Thank you.
nice day.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great day.